Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Welcome back, Hawkeye sports fans, to another episode of Punting is Winning, your all Iowa podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Keith. He's JD. Welcome back. Quite a weekend this weekend. Took in Major League Baseball game this weekend together, and
yes,
wasn't sure we were going to get it in with the rain that just kind of hovered over Kauffman Stadium yesterday.
Yeah, luckily it was only a 50-minute delay, so it wasn't terrible. It didn't really throw us off too far. I figured we'd get home about, by the time we stopped after and had something to eat. I figured about 8:30, and we got home, I think it was about 8:45. I got home anyway at 8:45. So I don't know. You still had people to drop off and that kind of thing, so you probably didn't get home until about 9:30 or 9:45.
Oh, I got home about 10:15, 10:30.
Okay, there you go. It was a nice day other than the rain. The rain was unexpected, I think. I don't know. We didn't see anything in the forecast. We drove down. Everything was bright and sunny. Pulled in the parking lot. We sat in the vehicle for a little bit because we were there just a little early. Didn't want to get out in the sun too much, so we sat in the vehicle, listened to music, talked, and bright and sunny, beautiful. We walked down to the stadium, walked around the stadium, and got right to about where we were getting ready to go down to our seats and looked up, and it's pouring.
Yep. And it rained good for a good 40 minutes or so.
Yeah.
But
so
luckily they have a good
back.
training system.
They do. They had very good groundskeepers and guys that keep good maintenance on the field, and it really only set us back like 50 minutes. It wasn't that big a deal, and the game went by quick. It was a fairly low scoring, kind of a pitcher's duel early. The innings were clicking by fairly quickly. I think we were in the fifth inning, and it was just about an hour and 10 minutes into it. So it moved around quick, but the Royals held a 2-0 lead clear up to the top of the ninth. The Mets got 2 runs, tied it, and then the Royals scored a run in the bottom of the ninth to win it. It was a walk-off, 3-2. That's how it came out. So it was a good game to watch. It was exciting. It was kind of boring for a while. Not a lot of scoring. It seemed like there was a double play about every inning, almost.
Yeah.
There's a lot of double plays, seemed like.
Yesterday. Both teams.
Yeah. But all in all, it was good. It was warm after the rain left and the sun came out. Everybody was sweating, and I know I was. I know you were. I think your kids were sweating equally. But
yeah, they got burned.
Did they get burned? I brought the suntan lotion and the.
Well, one of them just on the legs. The other one got burned because he didn't want to use the suntan.
And I warned him. I said, you're going to get fried. I'm talking from experience of being in a Royals game. I got burned there a few times myself. So yeah, sometimes you got to learn those things the hard way. But even though somebody gives you advice and say, put the sunscreen on, you can lead a horse to water.
Yep.
Can't
absolutely.
make it drink.
But anyhow, so that was a good weekend. It was a fun weekend. Took in the farmers market on Saturday as well, downtown Des Moines. That was pretty nice. A lot of people, but still kind of nice to get out. So let's jump into the question of the week from last week. Was how many yards? What's the completion percentage, the TDs, and the interceptions that we think that Mark Gronowski is going to throw for this season? And I gave my idea last week. I don't know if you ever really officially gave yours.
I didn't, but I have it here.
And I don't know, did we have some, I know on the car ride, the oldest said something about, what did he say, 2,400 yards or 2,200 yards?
2,600 maybe.
18 touchdowns, 7 picks, completion percentage around 64, 65%, something like that.
We had a couple of answers on the, I think it was our Facebook page. And, the majority of the people were in the 25 to 28 range. And I'm not going to be any different. I'm right now, if I was to pick, I'm saying 2685, 61%, 17 TDs and 6 picks. That's my prediction, and I think that's right in line with where a lot of people are. I'm not breaking any new ground here, that's for sure. But
yeah, I think
that
the
seems to be the
65,
consensus.
66 that I said is probably a stretch goal for it, but
Well,
he was 61% last year.
I'd like to see more down the field stuff too. I mean, these little dump offs to the running backs out of the backfield. Yeah, you can get 65% pretty easily doing stuff like that. But I want to see more down the field. I want to see the 10, 12, 15-yard plays and then bust off one for, 35, 40, a deep out.
Well, but if your running backs are a huge weapon, that is, that's effective.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it all plays out. If there'll be certain games, I'm sure that the opponent will defense for the run and say, okay, Iowa, you're going to have to beat us through the air. And those are the games that Iowa hopefully will understand by the second half that that's what's going on and not try to just continually try to run through an 8 or 9 man front, which is what they've tried to do before, stacking the box. But I mean, I get you have to run the ball to keep it consistent, to try to keep them, from favoring one side or the other. But by the same token, you can't, if that's what they're going to do and dare you to pass, you should start throwing, just,
take what the defense gives you.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Well, I think we're going to center our most of our podcast around rivalries. So let's hit that question for next week. Is we want to know what rivalry in college football is your must-see TV rivalry. It could be in the Big Ten. It could be nationally. If you have more than one, that's fine too. We'd love to hear it. We'll talk a little bit more here in a little bit about what we consider our favorite rivalries. So just drop us a message of who your favorite rivalry is, what maybe it's just from a traditional standpoint, or it could just be from must-see TV. It's a great game usually every year, so I love to watch it type of thing. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. We're going to do that here. What, right? You want to do it now?
Let's talk the you want to talk a little bit about Caitlin Clark and the fever with her back. I don't want to say she's 100%, but she's back to playing, at least back in the lineup.
Right. Yeah, one of the things I like about Caitlin is that she understands that even though she's not maybe scoring like she wants to, her shot might be off a little bit, and I don't know if that's because of the injury or because she's not been able to practice as hard as she wants to. I'm sure she's been out there shooting. That's not really been an issue. I don't think with a groin you should be stopped from shooting, but by the same token, you're just not able to get the launch, out of your hand, the power that way. She understands the game well enough to understand that if I'm not scoring, I should be delivering assists. I should be passing the ball to the open player for a layup. And I did, even though we were at Kansas City yesterday, I did record the game from yesterday and watched it today. It was a good game from a standpoint of she understood what her role is right now. And the teams that are in the WNBA right now, and they've admitted it, I've seen quotes from coaches that say that their whole goal is to try to stop Caitlin. And that is a difficult task because she's so dynamic that she can hurt you in many, many, many different ways. If she's not scoring, she's just distributing. If she's, she actually had 5 steals yesterday and a block shot. And so she's getting better on defense. She's playing a better defense. She's not a liability like she had been. So that's a good thing. She's very, very knowledgeable about where angles and passes and knowing who's going to break free, because she could see. There was a couple times I think Kelsey Mitchell broke free. She saw her ahead of everybody else breaking free and had delivered the ball. By the time she got to the basket, I'm not even sure she'd made maybe one dribble and then up with a layup. That's the kind of thing that Caitlin can bring, that a lot of them, they dribble with their head down, or they're just not they don't know that they can make that pass, so they don't even try. And I get it; she's a little turnover prone at times too. But yesterday she only had 2, so that's a huge improvement.
Well, I think she sees the floor better than most people do. Anyway, she just understands where people are supposed to be or where they're going to be, and she puts a ball in a spot. And if quite honestly, a lot of her turnovers are maybe attributed to they're not ready for it, not expecting it. But to your point, I think a lot of people look at it and say, "Oh, well, she's not scoring, so she's not as good as we thought she was." Actually, she's smart enough to know, like you said, she's smart enough to know that if I'm not scoring, I'm delivering. And she makes everybody around her better.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a whole lot of players in the NBA or the WNBA that you could say that about, that truly make the players around her better. So she doesn't have to be the scoring machine that she had to be in college. I'm not saying that was a problem at Iowa either, because she made the players around her better as well. But, she was the focal point of that Iowa offense. She was the focal point of that Iowa team, those Iowa teams. And she was going to get hers. It's one of those situations where if I'm a coach, you let her get hers, and you try to stop everybody else because you're not going to stop her. Well, the WNBA is a little bit different because the athletes are a little more elite than they are in college and places. So, yeah, they're able to maybe slow her down a little bit more. She's the only player probably in the history of the WNBA that gets picked up 94 feet from the basket and has to fight through a defense just trying to bring the ball up the court.
Exactly.
And I get it. That's a smart thing to do as a coach. You want to hound them all the way up the court because that uses energy.
Well, right now, the common comparison amongst the people that talking heads, so to speak, is that the Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers. Well, Paige Beckers, for one, is a rookie, which is fine. She's a good player. No, don't get me wrong. She's a really good player for being a rookie. But the difference between Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark is that they're not the opposing teams are not focusing defensively around how do we stop Paige Beckers.
Yeah.
They're focusing 100% when they play at the Fever on how do we stop Caitlin Clark. And that's the difference. Paige Beckers is not getting picked up 94 feet from the basket, typically. Not consistently like Caitlin is. So when you have a player as dynamic as Caitlin is, that draws the attention of the defensive scheme every game, then you can compare somebody else who's also that way. If it's not like that, if the other team's not really watching a Paige Beckers, for example, all 94 feet, and they're not game planning to defend her, then it's not an apples to apples comparison. It's just not. And I'm not going to say that Paige Beckers isn't a great player. She is a very good player, and she is this dynamic scorer, but she's not getting hounded like Caitlin. She's not getting picked up 94 feet from the basket. She's not getting held almost every play.
Yeah, I was just going to say, she's not getting hand checked every time. And basically she's getting, I watched some clips because I didn't get to watch the game, but I watched clips, and in those small short clips of probably about 2.5 minutes total, I saw her get fouled 7 times. And
probably
only one of them was called. And that was because it had to be, because it was so egregious that you had to call it. I mean, she went up for a shot and just literally got hammered.
Yeah.
And it was like, almost felt like, is he reluctant to call that? She got fouled 3 times before they even called a foul.
Yeah. And that's the unfortunate part of it, is that I think a lot of things like that are purposefully not called because of, I don't know if it's partially because of resentment, maybe because she is always doing I got fouled, but never, they don't call it. And she's kind of showing them up a little bit, complaining a little too much. If she would just keep her mouth shut, put her head down, and just accept what has happened. I don't think it does you any good to run up the court with your arms like this, trying to go, well, I got fouled. Why didn't you call it? Yeah. Just go back, play defense, think about the next play, move on. I know it's difficult. She's a competitor. and she's going to let them know that she was fouled. But by the same token, hun, just stop doing that, please. It's just drawing more ire from the referees, and the other players are going to start looking at that. And the haters, the people that just won't give you any credit for anything. Those are the people you're just fueling the fire for those. So, yeah, but I think when her shot comes back and her 3 points, she starts hitting more consistently. When everything starts to get back together, when everything starts to flow consistently and rhythmically for her, then look out, because she's gonna tear it up again. But keep getting those assists. They had 13 yesterday. That's pretty good.
Yeah, 13 assists to 2 turnovers is a pretty good ratio.
And the sad part about it is she had about 3 other assists that they didn't make layups on. She could have had 16 easily.
Yeah, she's one of those that probably has as many missed assist opportunities as she does assists.
Pretty close.
Well, speaking of, you talked about drawing the ire of the referees and drawing the hate from the haters. Let's talk a little bit about hating your rivals.
Yeah, okay.
So we were listening to a couple of podcasts on the way back yesterday, and this was brought up about rivalries and in-conference rivalries and just rivalries in general in college football. And it got me to thinking, what rivalries are there that I just absolutely feel like I can't miss? Games that I really want to watch, or games that are not necessarily important in the grand scheme of things to me, but are fun to watch. Or maybe it's one of them where it's like you root for the underdog every time type of thing. So I got to thinking, I was like, what would be 5 national rivalries that are rivalries that you would draw your most interest, pique the interest of you the most? Yeah. And it could be it could be conference rivalries too. I mean, it could be a Big Ten rivalry.
Well, I'm going to kind of try to break this up into couple different things.
We're going to do a Big Ten rivalry as well here in a bit.
Yeah. I want to preface this by saying these are games that I would stop what I'm doing to come in and watch at least majority of the game, as long as Iowa's not playing at the same time this rivalry that I'm going to mention is being played, because Iowa will always be number 1, and I will always watch them before anything else. I just want everybody to know that. Yep. Luckily, the first one I have listed here. And do you want to do a second one right out, like yours after mine? Or you kind of alternate?
You go ahead and do your 5.
You do all 5? Yep. Okay. Luckily, we don't have to worry about this one. Ohio State, Michigan. Obviously. And the reason why it is because typically those are the 2 teams in the conference that have traditionally, before the 4 that added, these were always the 2 battling it out for the championship typically, especially through the 70s, early 80s, before Iowa started getting better. It was always Ohio State, Michigan, and it is still Ohio State, Michigan. It's the game you want to watch. It's typically on a time slot by itself on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, like at the end of kind of like Iowa will play on a Friday typically now against Nebraska, and then Michigan, Ohio State will be on a Saturday at 11 o'clock. Well, that's a holiday weekend. People are out and about. I tend to stay home, watch this game, at least keep it on and watch it as much as I can. If it gets to be kind of a blowout a little bit, I may venture to other games, but if there's anything on. So I would say number 1, must watch Ohio State, Michigan.
Okay.
Second one, I typically always tune in to Army Navy at some point. Now, I may not watch the entire game, but I will tune in virtually every year to at least watch maybe a half or potentially the whole game, depending on how good of a game it is. If it's 21-0 at the end of the first quarter, I may venture away, that kind of thing. But if it's close, I always watch. So that just and it kind of hits too because my dad and another friend of his, they have a rivalry. He was in the Navy, dad was in the Army, and they have a traveling trophy, and so it's kind of fun to know who's going to get the trophy each year. So I do watch that one. These aren't really in any particular order, except Michigan Ohio State's probably in the number one. But USC Notre Dame.
Okay.
Before USC entered the Big Ten, I really watched that game. Tried to make sure that I had that game, no matter what I was doing, unless I was invited out to something. I would typically then maybe I would record it. But I always watched USC and Notre Dame, and maybe because USC is now in the Big Ten, maybe that I don't know why, but it takes a little shine off it for me. It should actually enhance it, but it doesn't. It's taken some of the shine from me.
I think in that case, it probably takes the shine off because you would normally root for USC to beat Notre Dame, but with them being in the conference, you're kind of rooting for Notre Dame to beat them now.
Well, I very
do.
rarely will ever find myself rooting for Notre Dame. In fact, I'm not sure it's happened in my lifetime, but there may be a possibility down the road.
I think when they played
Iowa State game. Yeah, I might have just not even watched it because I was kind of hoping neither team would win. Then I've got to go with Alabama, Georgia, especially lately. They have been the cream of the crop from the SEC typically. Don't get me wrong. There's other teams that are good too. LSU is good sometimes. But these are the two that typically would draw the attention of the national crowd. I would watch this game just to see the overwhelming amount of talent that both teams have and watch who's going to be playing on Sunday before they're playing on Sunday. This is from a talent standpoint, this might be the best game all year. Typically, I'm not saying that there isn't talent anywhere else, but if you want to see the most talent group together, that game is the one you watch. The last one I have is the Red River Shootout, Texas, Oklahoma. That's just a traditional thing. It's on every, early in the year, usually about first week in October sometimes.
Fourth week maybe.
Yeah, it's always on. I have missed it a couple of times because of things that I've not been able to get away from it. But typically, there for a while it was a close game, and then it got to be kind of a lopsided affair, one team over the other. It seemed like it was Texas winning big or Oklahoma winning big each time, so it got kind of a. But then lately it's been a little bit better. But I like that one. I enjoy Oklahoma, and I've been to Oklahoma. I've seen them play in their stadium, and so they have a little bit. We have family down there, and they're big Oklahoma Sooner fans. So I tend to pay a little closer attention to Oklahoma than I do, let's say, a Clemson. I really don't watch Clemson. Unless they're like super good, 10-0 or something. Then I might tune into a game to see how they do. But there's enough games out there weekly that it's difficult to try to watch everything, but I try to keep an eye on the ticker down below. And if there's a game that's looks like it's a shootout or something, I may funnel over to that just to see how it's going. But these are the five I would say probably, and I don't know, I'm not really breaking any new ground here. This is probably a lot of people's national games that they would watch and the rivalries they would pay attention to. So I'm not going to bring up some weird, Hawaii versus San Diego State type of thing. I'm not going to do that. That's from being in the Midwest. If you live in San Diego and you followed the San Diego State Aztecs, then maybe you've got something going on down there. But Midwest, we're not looking at that.
Okay. Well, I'm a little bit different direction. I'm not going to mention the Big Ten ones until I do a Big Ten group. Yeah. So, obviously, Ohio State, Michigan is must-see TV anyway. I'm going to go for, Army, Navy, and typically it signifies that that's the end of college football season. That is the end of the regular season. Yeah. Unlike you, I'm usually rooting for Navy just because I've had friends that have been in the Navy that it's just more prominent. I didn't have any friends who went in the Army, so I just kind of adopted Navy. One of my good friends is a lieutenant commander in the Navy too, so kind of adopted that. But it's always a fun game to watch, and the tradition behind a lot of that, the singing and the ambiance of that is just, it's hard to beat. I'm going to give, actually, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to give two honorable mentions. First honorable mention is kind of off the wall, but and it's more recently. South Dakota State, North Dakota State. When they play each other, and they usually have them on TV now, that's one of them I tend to want to tune into, because you've got, and maybe if it's from a perspective of coaches that have coached at Iowa that are coaching there, or you've got players that have transferred there, or players that might be transferring in, the Mark Gronowskis, that Bryce Hawthorne's type of thing. Not that we knew at the time, but it's just one of those games that it's fun to watch, because those two teams are kind of the cream of the crop of the FCS in my book. The other honorable mention is the Backyard Brawl, Pitt in West Virginia, when they played it, was one of those that I really like to watch. It was typically on a Friday after on the Thanksgiving weekend. You could watch it usually after the Iowa-Nebraska game. So that was one of them I like to watch. But getting back to the five after Army-Navy, Alabama-Auburn in the Iron Bowl is one of them that I like to watch. I probably won't watch it if one of the two teams is really bad, or if I look at it and go, oh, this is probably a blowout. This is not going to be but typically it is a pretty close game. Even when Auburn's not that great, Alabama tends to play down to their level sometimes. You've got some upsets in there, and the kick six game will always be remembered. Another one that I really, really enjoy watching is South Carolina Clemson. That is always a fun game. That's kind of like Iowa State, in the amount of hate that's there. But it's fun to watch because there's so much talent on both sides of the ball for both teams. It's just fun to watch them. So that's three. I'm going to go with the Apple Cup when it was played. Washington State was always fun. One of those that I always like to watch. Just because it's one of those intrastate rivalries that they just don't like each other.
Right.
And for number five, I'm gonna go again, another intrastate rivalry. Bedlam, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. Was always fun, and to me that was very much must-see TV to watch those two teams go at it. Because again, I like those teams that just don't like each other, and you watch them play. It's like, let's use Iowa State for example. Typically, Iowa has a better team; they have more talent, whatever. But when another team, sorry Iowa State fans, but when another team is considering their Super Bowl, they're always going to get up for it. And that's kind of the way it is with Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. It's the way it was with Washington State. It didn't matter if one team was head and shoulders above the other and the other team was not very good. The games were typically close. They were competitive because maybe that Oklahoma team that's coming in at 10-1, and you've got a Oklahoma State team that's 6-5 or 5-6. Oklahoma State's fighting for a bowl life, and Oklahoma's fighting for possibly a college football berth.
Yeah.
There's a lot on the line. Both teams play harder. They play more. The games typically end up not the way you would expect them on paper, and that's what I like about those games.
Yeah, good list. Yeah, it's a very good list.
Let's break back and let's go to Big Ten Conference only.
Okay, Big Ten Conference only. I mean, obviously,
can include Iowa games. Yes.
Yeah, obviously Ohio State, Michigan. I've already talked about that one, so we're not going to go into that one. Of course, Iowa, Minnesota for the Pig. Everybody knows that. Being a Hawkeye fan, just Minnesota's. I think Minnesota hates Iowa more than any other school on planet Earth. They will.
They do.
You can sit back and watch them at a basketball game when they're playing Michigan, and they're still screaming in the crowd, "We hate Iowa." Iowa's not even playing them. That right there, I'm not sure Iowa has the same amount of hatred towards Minnesota. I know I want to beat them every year. That's part of it, but I want to beat everybody.
Yeah.
So I would say Iowa, Minnesota. There's been some. I think some of the fuel for that hatred was when Iowa decided to try to pull the goalposts out through at the Hubert
The
Eight
rotating
Humphrey
doors
Dome,
in the Metrodome.
and they couldn't get it out. I was there for that game. I didn't actually partake in anything as far as damage to the field structures or anything like that. I was just kind of standing in the crowd watching and thinking to myself, where are they going with that? And how do they think they're going to get out through a revolving door? I think they're just going to drop it in the hallway and leave. Yep. And I think that's what they did. But that's part of why they hate us as much as they do, probably, is that, those kind of things. I'm going to go with Minnesota, Wisconsin for the Axe. That's probably number 3 for me. And I do try to watch that game because at the end of the season, especially lately, it seems like that game is a determining factor on something that has to do with Iowa as far as the bowl game or how they're going to
the West
finish.
Always depending
exactly. So I do tend to watch that one. And that the whole thing about the Axe, that's pretty cool. I mean, congratulations for you guys thinking that one through back in the early days. But that's pretty cool. That's been played for like 126 years or something. That's probably the longest one. But yeah, that's an interesting one. I really enjoy watching that game. And typically that is a closer game than what you'd think. A lot of times Wisconsin's head and shoulders above most, back in the Ron Dane era and some of those some really good Wisconsins. And they would always have a tussle with Minnesota. It was always a tough game. I'm sure there were some blowouts in there, but those don't seem to register with me as much as those closer games when they're back and forth and you don't know who's going to win the game till the very end. I love those games. I'm going to go Michigan State for the, is that the 4th one? Yep. And I think it comes down to another deal where the two teams in the state and everybody's fighting each other. It's brother against brother. It's a Civil War type of situation in Michigan. That they just hate each other. And it's one of them deals where Michigan could be outstanding and Michigan State could be, mediocre or even not even very good. Yep. And Michigan State will pull the upset on them more often than not. It seems like the punt game where Michigan screwed up the punt. Yeah.
The original origin of the Surrender Cobra. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you bring that one up. That's always a hated rival with Michigan State. Those people hate each other.
When they're fighting in the tunnel, that's always a sign of a heated rivalry.
Yes. So that's a fun one to keep an eye on from a standpoint of what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. What was it? Wasn't it a couple of years ago? Michigan State went on Michigan's, or was it vice versa? They went on their logo in the middle of the field during warmups and did something, and it made them mad. And the other team came over, and it ended up being a big brawl before the game even started. And I can't remember if that was at Michigan or Michigan State. I can't remember what the deal was there, but that just typically right there just should tell you how much fuel of fire there is between the hatred of those two teams. Going to move on. Iowa, Nebraska. And the only reason I say this is because it's just, I don't like Nebraska. They're full of themselves from the success they had in the 80s and 90s, 70s and all that time. And they just want you to know how great they were 40, 50 years ago. And, this society's now is a what have you done for me lately society. Mm-hmm. And so since Iowa has 9 out of the last 10 has won 9 out of the last 10?
I believe so. Or
8 out of the last 10, one of those. It's not as much of a rivalry from a standpoint of who wins. It's just a more of a, we don't like your arrogance from an Iowa standpoint. And I think Nebraska's kind of like looking at us like, we've got the heritage and you're not going to take that from us. And no matter how hard you try. So I think it's more of a fans thing than a team thing. I know they don't like each other last year. They
That's
what was it?
coaching,
There
I
was
think.
they wouldn't
The
shake
handshake.
each other's hands and that kind of thing. So there is a little bit of that, and I like that, but because that always adds a little excitement to the watching the game. You're like, what's going to happen? But that one, but more from a hate standpoint rather than a competitive standpoint. It's not been that competitive lately. It's always a close game, but it seems
Yeah.
like Iowa always wins. That's what I'm getting at.
You can basically not mark that game down as a 13-10 Iowa win.
Yeah, an Iowa field goal with no time left would
Yep.
typically is what ends up happening. It
Yeah.
seems like anyway. Those are my 5 from the Big Ten.
Okay. Good list. I wouldn't disagree
or
with
wrong.
very much of that or any of it really. I would go for my 5. I would go obviously Michigan and Ohio State, and for there's no explanation needed for that. That's just kind of that's probably the biggest rivalry on the national stage too. Definitely the biggest rivalry in conference.
Yeah.
And again, these are in no particular order. I'm not saying this is the top. Obviously, that would be probably the top rivalry of any of them. But my number 2 is not necessarily that this would be my second. I'd rate this as the second run and whatnot. I would probably go with Michigan, Minnesota. A little brown jug.
Brown jug.
There's been some, like you look at last year. I think it was last year when Michigan looked like they were going to run away with it. Minnesota kind of got screwed at the end. Or was that 2 years ago? I think it was last year. But I just remember some games back in the day where, Minnesota had just a plethora of running back talent. The Marion Barbers of the world, and those games against Michigan were always slugfests, and they are typically a closer game. There's been obviously been a few blowouts. There's always blowouts in rivalry games every now and then, but for the most part, it's a very competitive game. And it's a fun game to watch. I'd also go with Minnesota and Wisconsin for the reason of border state. The Axe is a great trophy. Probably the second best trophy in all college football behind Floyd of Rosedale. I don't care what you say. My Iowa bias may be showing through or whatever, but the Floyd is the best rivalry trophy in college football, period.
I agree.
So I would say, Wisconsin and Minnesota. And again, there's a lot of animosity towards each other there. I think they try to say that there's more animosity in that than there is towards Iowa, but I just don't buy it. They're not screaming, "We hate Wisconsin" at Rutgers games. That's just
right.
Say what you want, but Iowa is their rival, and Wisconsin is their nemesis. And I think Iowa is their nemesis too, because Iowa has had the upper hand. Taking out the obvious illegal fair catch game, which was I still mark in my head as an Iowa win because it was. Minnesota has beaten Iowa once in the last 10 years.
Yeah, not much.
Yeah, so I mean, again, rivalries need to have some competitive edge and competitive balance. Their games are competitive. Don't get me wrong, but one side's winning a lot and the other side's not. Even with competitive games, it kind of tends to get to be like, so there is 4. That's 4, right? 3, because
Yeah.
I didn't say Iowa, Minnesota yet. Iowa, Minnesota, for obvious reasons. Floyd, it's border war. It typically used to be the last game of the season for Iowa back in the 80s and 90s. Now with Nebraska joining, and I hate to say contrived rivalry between them, it was kind of forced upon us. Which again, it's fine. We've turned it into a rivalry, and that's great. Prior to that, I would have said Minnesota was the biggest rival Iowa had, even bigger than Iowa State, because you played that game more often. It's in conference. It means more. That's a bigger rivalry than Iowa State is. Iowa State is just Iowa State's a thorn in the side kind of rivalry. It doesn't really play a whole lot into the grand scheme of things one way or the other. So why play it? You're not.
It has a couple of
you're
times.
You're appeasing the in-state fans. That's all you're doing. You're appeasing the governors. You're appeasing the senators. You're appeasing the in-state fans of, oh, well, you got to play these teams. I think it's a stupid, worthless game because I mean, they compete for in-state talent, but typically Iowa and Iowa State aren't competing for the same talent out of state. And kids that are growing up in the state of Iowa, they're either going to be Iowa fans or Iowa State fans. I don't care. You can play that game 100 times, and if Iowa wins 99 times out of 100, and a kid has been an Iowa State fan most of his life, he's still going to pick Iowa State, even if Iowa offers. It's just the way it is. Now, there's going to be exceptions to that rule, obviously, but for the most part, it means nothing. So, anyway, I digress. That's not in the Big Ten. I'd say my fifth Big Ten rivalry, I'm going to go a little newer, and I'm going to say Oregon-Washington would be one that I would want to watch. Maybe an honorable mention of USC-UCLA, just because UCLA has not been that great lately. But then again, USC has not been that great.
We might have a rivalry that is not going on right now, but will be going on soon. And that's Ohio State-Oregon.
Yeah.
That one is going to start bubbling up, and it's going to get big. I think it's going to be right up in that top 5 in about 10 years.
Yeah. And I think a lot of
people. I realize they don't play every year, but
a lot of people probably would have said Ohio State and Penn State too, but I don't know. I just don't see that one again. I know there's
typically a good game.
Yeah, it's a good game, but I don't know that I see that as a rival. I don't think either team looks at each other and says, I hate this other team. And I think for rivalries to be rivalries, there has to be some serious, I hate to use the word hate. I used it twice there, but animosity towards the other teams. And I don't see it in Ohio State, Penn State, in that rivalry. I mean, it's just not a rivalry because of that.
Well, Penn State has to win that game once in a while, I think, too, to make it even more. But
now, had we talked Penn State Pitt, okay, that's a different story. But I just don't think there's nobody in the Big Ten that's a natural rival with Penn State, because there's just no. Yeah, we don't like them, but there's no unadulterated classic hate for that other team. No, I don't know.
I don't like them, but I don't like a lot of teams in the Big Ten because they're trying to take away what I want. Yeah. Big Ten championship. So, to
me, yeah, every team in the Big Ten's a rival of mine, and I want to see them lose. So,
yeah, pretty normal. Yeah.
That's all
that
I've
was
got
fun
for the day.
Do want to mention, I want to congratulate 4 Iowa Hawkeye baseball players for getting drafted in the Major League Baseball draft that's happening. There it happened. I think it's still happening. Could be still happening today. Yeah, yesterday and today. I'll go through these really quick. Cade Obermuller, the starting starting pitcher. He went in the second round, and he was drafted by the Phillies. Daniel Wright went in the 10th round to the Chicago White Sox. Anthony Watts went in the 14th round to the St. Louis Cardinals, and Aaron Savary. I never get that right. Savory. 13th round to Cleveland Guardians, I guess you want to call them. They're not what I would call them. But yeah, congratulations to those 4 Hawkeyes that got drafted. I'm sure there will be some undrafted players that will sign, minor league contracts with teams, and they'll get to prove themselves in the minors, and maybe they can come on up and get a cup of coffee or even more in the big show.
Yeah, and some of those kids, the late round kids, aren't necessarily. They don't have to sign with a team. They can come back to college. Some of those guys have eligibility left. If they can come back, you might improve your stock, whatever. But I think it's they're eligible as sophomores, and if they come back, because they can't be drafted the next year or something like that. I don't remember how.
I don't know the rule on that.
It's a strange rule, or
I never had to worry about it.
But I did. There's another kid. Just happened to see it. Was my wife worked with the kid's mother several years back. That kid from Dallas Center Grimes was drafted in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I did see that.
Tatum. I think this is his name.
That sounds right. It's starts with a T. I can't remember if that's right, but it could be.
Yeah, and I the reason I bring that up is when the youngest was playing at Norwalk and DCG were kind of their big rivals. So it's always interesting when somebody on that little Hawkeye conference gets drafted. And,
Well,
good for them. Get out of high school.
Especially
Third
out of high
round,
school.
too.
Yeah, that's
Totally.
pretty high up there. They must see a
Yeah.
lot in him, and I don't know him. Haven't seen him play. I couldn't evaluate the talent on him anyway. But yeah, congratulations to all those players on getting drafted and whatever they decide to do, whatever path they choose.
Mm-hmm.
I wish them the best of luck.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that's all I've got for today.
Yeah,
Let's
I don't have anything else either.
wrap things up here with catch us on our social media pages. Make sure that you check out our merch store. Anything that you purchase on there, the extra proceeds or the profit margin from that, which is very small anyway, goes to the Swarm or to the Flight Fund, whichever we decide. If you're willing to buy something, there's some good quality stuff out there. Love to see some people buy some stuff and promote the show a little bit. Still waiting for our 50th subscriber as well.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for watching or listening. If you're on Spotify, thank you for listening. If you're watching us on YouTube, appreciate you watching. I hope everybody's having a really good summer. It's going by very quickly. So, get outside and enjoy the good days when it's not as overwhelmingly humid and hot, but enjoy the evenings. I sit out a lot of times on my deck at night, and after the sun has gone past the house and I don't get direct sunlight, it's actually pretty comfortable. So, and get out and enjoy. We only have the one life to live, so enjoy it when you can.
Yeah, I agree. Take in the things that you want to see. Travel if you want to travel. Do the things you need to do. Enjoy yourselves. But yes, again, thank you for watching and supporting our show. We have a lot of fun doing this. Enjoy doing this. Probably do some individual games coming up in the next couple weeks. Then we'll start getting into more of the football with the Big Ten Media Days coming up. And then you'll have your Iowa Media Days after that. Not too long after that. It's usually the first week of August, I believe. So we'll get into that and have some more, maybe some sound bites, some more information, things that we see, observations, whatnot, make our predictions, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, that's all I got. So we'll round out with the Go Hawks and get out of here.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.